The Many Saints of Newark, out on HBO. It's the prequel film to the acclaimed TV show The Sopranos. And let's get one thing clear right off the bat. It is a movie made specifically for fans of the show. If you haven't watched it, then I think you'll find most of the movie incomprehensible and pointless because of how much it relies on your knowledge of future events and the characters as well. The story takes place in two time periods. First in 1967, then it skips a couple of years over to the 1970s for the rest of the film. Its focus is not actually on the young Tony Soprano, but rather the person who ended up inspiring him to join the mob, his uncle Dicky Moltisanti, father of Christopher from the show, played by Alessandro Nivola. In the film, we see him live his life as a career gangster, trying to handle his mob activities, including dealing with black gangs of Newark, as well as his personal life, being a mentor to Tony, juggling his wife and his lover, developing a friendship with his father's incarcerated brother. Now, it sounds kind of unspecific, and if it does, it's because that's how the movie actually is as a whole, and it's possibly my biggest complaint. The story isn't really gripping, and the film feels rather like a series of very loosely related events that end up building up to almost nothing at all, and even leaving one significant plotline pretty much completely unresolved. Now, to be fair, it sometimes felt like that in The Sopranos too. It wasn't a plot-driven show as much as it was an exploration of its characters, their development over longer periods of time. But I think this type of drawn-out character development that worked over, 6 seasons of a show doesn't really fit a 2-hour movie. The pacing is just off, and it often seems like we'll have one scene that somewhat moves the story forward, and then one or two scenes which don't, but are there just for fan service. And by the way, the amount of fan service in the film, in the form of callbacks, winks at the audience, and direct quotes from the show, is staggering to the point of being just too much. Also, if you really want to learn about the origins of Tony Soprano specifically, well, the movie doesn't really delve too deep in that subject either. Mostly he's an adjacent character, only really interacting with the main plotline a couple of times. And as much as Michael Gandolfini looks and sounds like his young father would, he isn't given a lot of time to shine. In general, the performance front, I found it to be kind of uneven. Some of the roles are spectacular. Vera Farmiga as Livia, Corey Stoll as Junior, Alessandro Nivola as Dicky, and Billy Magnussen as Paulie come to mind. They're all really excellent. On the other hand, though, we have stuff like John Magaro as Silvio, which really looks like a full-on comedy parody of the character. It's mind-boggling. Ray Liotta and John Berntal are usually fantastic actors too, but I found them to be somewhat ordinary here, like in the way that they don't really bring anything interesting to the table. There's also another problem here, because as much as the movie is geared towards fans of the show, it breaks the established timeline. Tony should be a child in the 1960s, but he's aged up, and on the other hand, all the other guys from his crew, who should be roughly the same age, are all much, much older than him. So it's kind of jarring there. Also, this will be a weird one, but there is a scene happening in the rain after a funeral where Dicky is talking to young Tony, and I swear to God, there is something wrong with Michael Gandolfini's microphone. It's picking up static, so his dialogue sounds weird. I mean, really, it just seems like they used a botched audio track there to that scene. Try to pay attention, because he ends up sounding completely different in that single scene, different than all the other ones. Anyway, at the end of the day, it's kind of a weird movie. As a fan of the show, I appreciated going into this world again and exploring some of the new characters and touching back with the old ones. But even I have to admit that the plotting and pacing is problematic, that the amount of fan service is way too overblown, and the movie does feel largely meandering. The very ending almost fixes some of those problems. I thought it was a brilliant finish to the film. But is it really enough to counterweight all the weaknesses of the script and direction? I'm honestly not sure. I think if you accept those flaws that the movie has, there's still a decent film in here, thanks to the performances mainly. But I just can't, in good conscience, call it a straight-up solid movie for everyone.